Guys, welcome to the show. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz today. This is from the vault. This is the Backness of Greenwich, which does these collections called the Vault Finds. That's the Kellners right there. The rare finds. Just felt like it. How are you? Let's get a radio show going. We've got a shutdown. We've got the most dangerous DEI story out there. They're all dangerous DEI stories. And political officials who think they're turtles. Oh, and your bourbon's in danger. Real danger. I'll explain. Show's about to start.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Rick Santelli here live at CME HQ with February Producer Price Index, the wholesale version of inflation. On the headline, expecting up 0.3, up 0, goose egg, unched. Boy, that is progress. We haven't had a number that low. Well, we equaled it in July of last year when we had another 0. To find a lower number, you're back to October of 23 at minus 0.4. Strip out.
It's not bad. You would get people excited, except tariffs drive everybody nuts and the markets continue to go down. Panicking? Gosh, no. Looking at my 401k? Gosh, no. Tony, you can't talk about 401ks. You're leading people to panic. Oh, dear Lord. People don't look at 401ks. If somehow I don't mention it, everything will be all right. It's got to be embarrassing to be such a sycophant that you can't notice reality right in front of your face. Tony Katz today. Great to be with you. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. And we should be clear that everybody is now discussing what we were discussing for weeks. And that is whether or not the Trump administration should have said from the beginning, things are going to be bad for a little bit.
Caroline, I want to ask you one follow-up on this because the American Automotive Policy Council has put out a statement sort of pushing back on this narrative. They said revoking the exemption for Canada and Mexico and extending tariffs to auto parts with steel and aluminum will add significant costs for automakers, suppliers, and consumers. You know, steel and aluminum tariffs obviously could have big impacts. Is it time for the president to do an Oval Office address maybe and try to explain to people that it might be bad for a little while, but it is, in fact, worth it?
Yes! Jackie Heinrich for the win. Clearly listening to this show. It's all we've been saying. This, nothing else. Just tell people. Here's what we're doing. Here's the impact. Here's where it's going to be rough. Here's where it's going to be better. This is the win.
I think the president has been incredibly clear, Jackie, on where he stands and what he envisions for the future of America. He wants to restore this great country as the manufacturing superpower of the world. And we have the ability to do it because we have the best market and we have the best workers and we have plenty of resources right here at home. What we need are these companies and these CEOs to recognize that, to trust in President Trump and to move their business here. And many of them already are. We've seen near
Caroline, I like you. Nope, not the answer. That's all. Not angry. You need the businesses to recognize how great Trump is. No. You need Trump to say, here's what we're doing. Here's how it will affect you. Here's where the short-term pain is. Here's where the long-term opportunity is. Let's go make it happen. Transparency. It's going to work. Transparency is what the Democrats won't engage in as they look down the barrel of a government shutdown that they are responsible for. The continuing resolution passes the House, now is at the Senate, and Chuck Schumer has stated as clear as day, Democrats will not vote for it. You need 7 Democrats to come across and vote for this so you end cloture. Cloture is the system by which you move out of debate and you move into voting. Without it, you got nothing. You have absolutely nothing. And what Schumer has stated is that Democrats are not in any way, shape, or form going to vote for this, which is interesting because if we go to Chuck Schumer, not too long ago, Chuck Schumer was saying this.
Some of our military service members could be forced to work without pay. Families who benefit from WIC and other nutrition programs could see benefits halted. If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos as the Social Security Administration limits certain services like benefit verifications or fixing errors in payments. Our veterans could see regional VA offices shut down and support services put on hold. Some of our military service members could be forced to work without pay. Families who benefit from WIC and other nutrition programs could see benefits halted. If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos as the Social Security Administration limits certain services like benefit verifications or fixing errors in payments. Our veterans could see regional VA offices shut down and support services put on hold.
Oh, I didn't realize I had repeated it. I thought he was still going through the list because he could do that list for forever. There was a time where Chuck Schumer opposed government shutdowns and listed all of the reasons. And now, government shutdown. How is this not on Chuck Schumer? I spoke with Congressman Marlin Stutzman. He joins us in a little bit. I'll share that information, that conversation I had with him earlier today about who's going to take the blame. But let's be perfectly clear. This guy takes the blame. You can't say that just a couple of years ago and then tell us, oh, just kidding. What do you mean, just kidding? What in the world do you mean, just kidding? You told us that if we didn't fund the government, all the plants were going to die. I mean, that's a Stripes reference, but neither here nor there. That's what you told us. And now it's no big deal. Yeah, you can't sell that. Democrats are going to be held responsible for the shutdown. Me, I'm going to keep smoking cigars like the one I'm smoking right now. It's a rare find from the tobacconist of Greenwich Village. It's a series that he does, rare finds. This one was made by the Kellners. I'm not getting worked up over a shutdown. No. You can get worked up over a shutdown if you choose. I don't actually think you should. I'm not getting worked up. Military doesn't get paid. I'm so sorry. Such and such in government doesn't get paid. I'm so sorry. It doesn't. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? These people are completely and totally irrational, and I cannot make them more rational. I cannot change who they are and how they speak.
No Democrat wants a shutdown. Shutdowns are also really, really bad. But we're in exceptional times and a very challenging moment. And I think that it's important also that Congress, steps up and does the job that we're elected by our representatives, by our
That's why you, Tina Smith, senator from Minnesota, aren't running for re-election, because stepping up is hard. By the way, Gary Peters in Michigan, Tina Smith in Minnesota, Jean Shaheen in New Hampshire. 3 Democrats not running for re-election. I guess it doesn't matter if they have a shutdown or not, because it's not going to affect them in a re-election. These are somehow special circumstances. No, they're not. These are political circumstances. And you're willing to let service members' families starve and die, Democrats, to win one over on Trump. To show that you won't take no guff from Trump. To show how tough you are. There is an expression. Not an expression, right? The idea of a consigliere is a bit of mafia parlance, right? You saw it maybe most in The Godfather, right? Tom Hagen being switched out for the old man, because after all, who would be a better wartime consigliere? Who possibly would be better at being a wartime consigliere than Marlon Brando? Nobody. So the consigliere is the person who gives advice. That's who the consigliere is. They give advice to the boss. They give advice to the Godfather.
Tom Hagen's no longer consigliere. He's going to be our lawyer in Vegas. That's no reflection on Tom, but that's the way I want it. Besides, if I ever need help, who's a better consigliere than my father?
That's there it is. Tom's out. Being able to advise in peacetime is very different than being able to advise in wartime. Allow me, just for a moment, to give a bit of advice to the Democrat Party.
F these people.
I'm sorry, what?
F these people.
All right, I get. You're not a fan, but let me give some advice, and let me try and give it properly here. Yeah, I know it's not The Godfather, but go with it. Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not wartime consiglieres. They don't know how to negotiate in this environment. They don't know how to fight in this environment. They don't know how to win in this environment. They don't know how to maneuver. They're being outflanked by their own party. They cannot keep the families in line. And there will be a war. And when that war comes, there's going to be a lot of blood in the streets. A lot of blood in the streets. And some of it might be yours. So maybe what you want to do is find somebody who can lead these 5 families into prosperity, goodness. You know what I mean? I think you do. Hakeem Jeffries cannot control the Democrats, and neither can Chuck Schumer. They got boxed out every which way you possibly could. And look at them now in favor of a government shutdown. And that's what America's going to see. No one's going to say, oh, the Democrats are standing up strong to Donald Trump. They're going to see nurses not get paid and parks be closed, national parks, all this kind of stuff. The entire Schumer list. They're going to say, look what Chuck Schumer did. I thought he cared about these things. Obviously, he only cares about them when it works for his politics. But since he doesn't know how to be a human being, he only knows how to politically react. He has no tactical skill whatsoever. All they could do is resist. We're going to have a shutdown. We're going to stay seated and sit on our hands instead of clap for a 13-year-old black teen who survived brain cancer. They sat on their hands. That was their great plan. That was their tactical advantage. Al Green with his cane yelling like he's Grandpa Simpson. You people are doing bad things. That's actually not a bad Grandpa Simpson. Can I get a little something? That was a little late, producer Landon. Seriously, that was just, honestly, be more on it. I'm telling you, this is their great plan. These people have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. Nothing that they can provide. Zero. They don't have a strategy. These are not wartime consiglieres. Now, you might be saying to me, Tony, why in the world are you giving these people advice? I want it said. I'm not giving them microphone. I'm not giving them any more platform. I'm just discussing what it is we discuss, the real nature of the thing. They have been beat by Donald Trump at every single turn. Guys, they're getting their butts kicked and they know it. Later, I'll speak to Griff Jenkins from Fox News, who was covering the border before covering the border was cool. And Trump's line of we didn't need new laws, we just needed a new president. Could anything be more true? When you take a look at the levels of arrests happening of illegal immigrants, so great, they actually need more beds. They can't deport people enough, which is really my question. Why can't we deport people fast enough? Doesn't even make any sense. Trump changed the entire immigration game, illegal immigration game, just with existence, no legislation. You think Democrats have an answer for that? When they told Americans for 4 years, we need new legislation this, we need new legislation that, all the trolls out there. Oh, we had to pass this and we needed that, and Republicans don't care about the border, and they're only just playing make-believe, and it's just a game to them. Well, here's what the Republicans just did. In less than 2 months, with no new legislation, and here's Chuck Schumer, who gave you the laundry list of reasons why you can't shut down the government, shutting down the government. Who's playing games? This is what America sees. Democrats are just getting smacked around like they're the mouse and the cat is super hungry. And it's happening because they have no tactician. They have nobody who leads. They don't have a wartime consigliere. And that is going to lead to a lot of damage in the party. Because when there's no leader, everybody thinks they're the leader. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. We will see it, guys. I am convinced, that my name is Tony Katz. Hey, how are you? My name's Tony Katz. That you're going to see calls for new leadership. I'm sorry. What now? Let's see if that's actually accurate. Pretty sure Landon's hearing some things about whether or not Putin has agreed to the ceasefire deal. That would certainly be something if he has. But I do. Oh, no. Not hasn't agreed to it, has favor for it. That's different. That is different. No, it's all right. It's why it's a great example of when you see something on the Twitter, it's okay. Let me go look this up. It's the research that comes next that matters most, because Twitter is very rarely right at the first. Very, very, very rarely right. So. And by the way, if you follow me on social media, I've got people very angry that they don't know the difference between a citizen and a lawful permanent resident. And they really believe that the rights are the same, and they are not. They are not the same. All right, so this is the audio of that. Is that what I'm seeing there? Yeah, let me no, let me do this. And let me bring this to you guys. Sorry, I'm working here. Producer Landon doing his job. All right, boom. That's going to be in Russian.
As for readiness of Ukraine.
All right. We'll play that together. I won't even listen to it right now. We will play that together. Oh, look at that. Nice little comment from Jason, who used to produce this show, photographer, videographer. Good to see you, Jason. Yeah. Studio is going okay. I always think we should go with the bigger look and the full studio in the background, but maybe this is enough. Simple. That's where the compliments are. The compliments are that this is very simple, and simple is good. I'm like, all right, we'll go with simple. I don't mind. I went with the full matching today. And then of course the blue TK right there. And the watch today, just really quickly. So this is the Luminox, the Tony Kanaan. That's this. I love the yellow face. Let me see if you absolutely love that right there. Oh gosh, the time's off. I never adjusted for the daylight savings thing. Terrific piece. I love it. I am hoping to share the new watch story with you tomorrow. That all depends on how today goes. Let me bring this to you right here.
As for readiness of Ukraine for the ceasefire, I'll tell you my estimation of this. But first of all, I would like to thank the President of the United States for paying so much attention to regulating the conflict in Ukraine.
That is Vladimir Putin through his translator. The story breaking right now. Good work, producer Landon. Vladimir Putin saying he is in favor of a 30-day ceasefire.
Of course, we all have lots of current issues to deal with. And the chairman of China and the Prime Minister of India, heads of states of Brazil and South Africa, they are dealing with this issue, and they're paying a lot of attention to this. And we're grateful for this. And we're hoping that their activity, we understand that their activity is aimed at reducing loss of human life in the conflict. Secondly, we agree with the proposals for the ceasefire, but our position is based on the assumption that the ceasefire would lead to a long-term peace.
And that, of course, is the question. What's being reported is that Putin has serious questions on how it would work. Well, isn't that what the 30 days is for? But that's the update right there. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Okay, this is getting more interesting. Nothing lives in a vacuum, children. And the story is that amongst the sanctions that Trump placed on Russia, that the Treasury ended the Biden exemption that allowed sanctioned Russian banks to process European payments for oil sales. Oh, is that how you brought him to the table? Oh, really now? Well, that's that changes a bunch of things. Certainly does. I'm trying to see if there's anything. I wonder if Mark's available. I'll reach out. What do you know? What do you know about that? Let me see if I can. Let me see if Ed's got the update there. There it is. This is very interesting, right? I'm not going to get too deep into it, but this part's fascinating. Was it pressure put on by saying you're not going to be able to get no more loot? That is the question, for sure. No, Putin needs them equally. He needs these areas of Ukraine because he needs population. I get your point. I see what you're saying, but don't discount the other thing. No way. I can't. So we're getting updates on what we're hearing out of Russia. What we're hearing is that Vladimir Putin is, quote unquote, in favor of the ceasefire. He just wants to know how these things are going to work. Let me continue what it is that he said right here. Let me back it up just a little bit. This is through a translator.
On the assumption that the ceasefire would lead to a long-term peace, something that would remove the initial reasons for the crisis. As for the readiness of Ukraine to ceasefire, there's a meeting between Americans and Ukrainians in Saudi Arabia, and it looks like a decision that is taken by Ukrainian side under American pressure. In reality, I am completely convinced that Ukraine had to ask Americans insist on this based on the situation on the ground.
So, of course, that is face-saving from Vladimir Putin, saying the Ukrainians realize they're losing. The Ukrainians are getting crushed. The Ukrainians are getting their you-know-what's kicked. So they had to come to the United States and say, hey, can you please help us? He's pushing a position of strength. This brings us to a very interesting post by Mark Thiessen. Mark Thiessen, a podcaster and writer. You see him on cable news often, where he is saying what has created this opportunity is that the Treasury under Donald Trump ended the Biden exemption that allowed sanctioned Russian banks to process European payments for oil sales. Now, we all pay attention a lot. We may miss some things here and there. We clearly understand that allowing the Europeans to purchase oil and to purchase energy from the Russians is to support Russia and toto, is to support Russia and their invasion of Ukraine. They can talk about the fact that they're opposed to it. They can talk about the fact that they're threatened by it or worried about it. Nonsense. If you're giving the Russians money, I mean, this was the whole Nord Stream 2 conversation. If you're giving these people money, cash, loot, ducats, dinero, quan, greenbacks, whatever you want to call them, or whatever, francs, you give them francs. You're supporting this war. What are you doing? Well, the story here from Mark Thiessen, now no one in Europe can purchase Russian oil. That would get me to the negotiating table too. This is a page out of Reagan. Remember how the Cold War was won? In the end, the Russians, the Soviets, could not afford to go on. You dropped the price of oil so much that there was just no money coming in. There was no opportunity coming in. It was over. That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. So is that what happened here? That you no longer authorizing the wind down of transaction related to energy. That's the post. Let me see if I can bring this to you right here. I wish I could make that a little bit bigger. State Corporation Bank for Development and Foreign Economic Affairs, Public Joint Stock Company, Bank Financial Corp. It goes on and on and on. It's basically a reading through the Office of Foreign Assets Control saying, yeah, we no longer allow these payments to take place. We're not going to be a part of this, and you're not going to be a part of this. And that leads Russia to saying, well, I guess we should talk. So the talks will begin. What will the talks deliver? It's a great question. Because in the end, I shouldn't say in the end. Well, yeah, I guess in the end, right? Because this was always about land. In the end, this is about Russia getting Donetsk and Luhansk. That's what it's about. It's about getting this eastern part of these areas of Ukraine. These are areas that are ethnically Russian, and even the people there aren't so opposed to being Russian. But it is Ukraine. And it is once again a taking by Vladimir Putin. Even Trump admits, under Bush, they took Georgia, and under Obama took Crimea, and this one took that. I think I got that timeline right. And this took this and took that, but he didn't do anything when I was president, which is proving that Vladimir Putin is an expansionist. And he doesn't care how many bodies he throws at it. He wants the end result. The end result has to result in land. How much land? Please don't get me wrong. I don't want Vladimir Putin getting a damn thing. I don't want him succeeding in this. Just like I've argued that not supporting Ukraine, I think, is a nutty position. Wrong. Not wanting to send them cash that they then spend on vacations and their pensions, I agree with. Not wanting to send them bullets is super weird. Wanting Russia to roll over Ukraine boggles the mind. There's going to be land. That's going to happen, and Zelensky just has to accept this. Ukraine has to accept this. It's the way it is. How much? What satisfies? And allow me to lay down my marker. Nothing will satisfy. Something will be agreed to, but nothing will satisfy. Kyiv would not satisfy, because if he had Kyiv, he would be looking west to Poland and saying, my gosh, that's some beautiful land. You know, I'm sure that I once read a book somewhere that says 0.000000001% of the population of that little speck right there is actually Russian. So therefore, claim trusting Vladimir Putin is just flat out nuts. And thinking that he's not going to do this again in a few years if he's still alive is equally nuts. But this is all happening. I wanted to break this down a little bit. As this is happening, of course, you've got the tariffs. And the tariffs are a magnificent pain in the butt. And yes, there are plenty of senators who are out there complaining about tariffs.
Maybe I'll look somewhere in another country, and that's the problem. And I continue on an international basis for national security and economics. Do not understand why the president's so interested in working with Russia. I get it with trying to have peace negotiations, but talking about Russia, which is only, I think, 2 to 3% of the world's economy, when our allies, this grouping of the US, Canada, Mexico, our USMCA group, and then you add in Europe, you add in South Korea, Japan, that's 50% of the world's economy. And so I don't understand why you wouldn't, when you're dealing with China and Russia, want to actually have better trading relationships with your friends. And I think
I don't think it's a question of better trading relationships with our friends if you want to argue that they are our friends. Trump's argument remains, if the trade imbalance means we're getting abused, what does it matter that we're all super friendly with each other? We're getting crapped on. That's his argument. The argument from Amy Klobuchar is based on an emotional argument, not based on an economic one. That we have deals with these countries, that they do represent more trade than, let's say, Russia, I can accept. But if the trade imbalance doesn't actually favor us or could be more favorable to us, why is that argument so bad? I say this as somebody who hates the tariffs. All tariffs are taxes. Of course, tariffs increase costs. I'll say it again and again, but that's not why I bring it up to you. I bring it up to you because of the bourbon. Now, you know, I host the largest cigar and bourbon radio review program in the country called Eat, Drink, Smoke. 90 plus stations out there. I'm kind of amazed. I'm kind of shocked. And you know, it's funny. We've been doing this for 5 years, and it's so weird that only now is it like starting to hit. People are reaching out and like, hey, we'd like to be a part of it. We had somebody reach out, and they sell smoking jackets, and they're like, you should check out our smoking jackets. We should talk. And I'm like, there should be a line of Eat, Drink, Smoke and Tony Katz smoking jackets, unquestionably. But that's not the story. We follow what's going on in cigar lounges. We follow what's going on in the trends of alcohol and what's selling and what isn't. And of course, bourbon had a massive boom, huge during COVID. People had free time, more money, right? Because they weren't spending money going out to lunch, this, that, and the other. And they weren't driving. Perfect combination for trying some good bourbon, some good rye, some good whiskey in general. Remember, all bourbons are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are bourbons. There are rules here. And if you ask, how do you know this? I wrote the book. It's called Let's Go Bourbon. It's available at Amazon.com. It's a very simple reader, right? The laws, everything else, and how these things work. Some great descriptions, some great quotes. It's perfect for the bathroom. Then we wrote Let's Go Barbecue, which is a much more entertainment-like book, and working on the other ones. But bourbon has fallen off. And bourbon has fallen off for a couple of really interesting reasons. And it has nothing to do with whether or not the bourbon is quality. The bourbon is quality. There is just some incredible stuff out there at worthy price points. Really, really terrific. What's happening is that younger generations aren't drinking. They're not drinking. They are into the mocktails. There are bars that do nothing but mocktails, non-alcoholic cocktails. The non-alcoholic beer market has exploded. And we're not talking about O'Doul's here. We're talking about Athletic. So Athletic is a non-alcoholic beer brand, and it is adored. That what they have taken off huge. It's incredible. This younger generation, not as much into the drinking. You take that and you add to that Ozempic, and you're like, I'm sorry, what now? Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound. I have no issue with people taking the stuff. I would take all four right now. But in addition to the weight loss, and of course, helping to lower your A1C, as if anybody cares about diabetes, it lessens the desire for alcohol. It truly does. It lessens the desire for alcohol, and that means that what you get is less people buying alcohol. Now you have, because of the tariffs placed on the EU responding with $28 billion worth of tariffs, including on bourbon. And that's going to mean distilleries go out because they're already dealing with these other things shrinking the marketplace. It's going to be rough. Really, really rough. We're going to be looking more into this conversation regarding Vladimir Putin. I see Ed Morrissey is going to join us from Hot Air. He has been looking at this. We'll be covering on the live stream, covering on the radio show. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. That's Ed Morrissey right there of hotair.com. Now, Ed, how much time do you have? What's going on with your schedule?
How much time do you need?
Well, so we're in a break right now on the radio side, and then we're going to come back to a very short segment, and then we're going to be in the longer break, and then we're going to come back to the show at 1:06. Would you be available at 1:06? That's Eastern time.
Yeah, sure. I can be available.
I mean, I just because I want to talk to you.
If you want me back at, I can come back into the studio at that point.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's great. I'll just turn around and keep working. I'm working on the house right now. I just got your email, so as soon as I got it, I threw a shirt on.
I love that you thought enough of us to connect. You look fine. You look fine. Although I got to admit, I am not a black undershirt guy. I don't understand that.
This is well. First off, I do have black undershirts. I like the black undershirts, but this is actually not an undershirt. This is my Chewy's Mexican restaurant shirt that I bought a little while back. So it's got this garish design on it. I figure I'm going to throw a shirt on top of that.
Yeah. Let's see it, Ed. Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. Let's see it. Unbutton for the crowd. Unbutton for the people. Yeah. Look at that. No, don't dance. Now it's uncomfortable. Let us see the garish design really quick.
All right, hang on for a second.
That doesn't look so. That's not garish. It's garish.
It's pretty good.
What is that supposed to be?
The nightmare before Tex-Mex.
No, the nightmare is after Tex-Mex.
Well, not if you eat at Chewy's. Come on.
No. I like. By the way, does a good job.
Yeah.
By the way, if Chewy's would like to sponsor Tony and Ed's Tex-Mex conversations, we will talk politics over fajitas anytime you want.
Absolutely. And they make great fajitas too. So there you go. We'll keep throwing that out there.
You know, I've been saying for years that Chewy's is my favorite Tex-Mex restaurant. The sponsor opportunities, they're not going to just come, you got to work for them, Ed.
You got to work for it. You got to really get into the whole brown nosing thing in order to get those big advertiser dollars.
So I think the question that everybody's asking is, why in the world are you wearing that under your shirt and your jacket? What was it not? Was it laundry day? What's going on?
No, I was just wearing it because I was not planning to be on camera today. I didn't have anything scheduled for today. So I mean, I got shorts on,
Don't show us that. Don't.
nobody needs to see that, right?
Right?
Got cargo shorts. They're cargo shorts too. So even more so. But because I knew I'd be on camera, I threw on a shirt and a jacket because Tony's is a class act.
Right. Tony Katz. That is true. Class act.
And Chewy's is a class act.
Right. And we would call it the Tony and Ed's Tex-Mex extravaganza,
There you go.
according to Sarah. That's what we call it. I'm so
man, I lived in Minnesota for 23 years. It was a Tex-Mex desert. I've lived in Central Texas for 4 years, and that is by far and away my go-to eat out choice. And they've got
even in
tons of
Texas. Even
What's
does Tex-Mex abound in Texas, or is it a different thing altogether?
No. I mean, you've got Tex-Mex and you've got authentic Mexican too. Right. There's a really great restaurant down the street from us, authentic Mexican, which is really good.
For the record, there's a chasm between those two things.
There is, yeah. In fact, there's 2 of them down the road from us, and both of them are good. Yeah.
Well, now you're just bragging. Tex-Mex, I have 2 places. I got the east side, I got the west side. I go uptown, I go downtown. Look at me.
This is 23 years with Norwegian Mexican food, man. I'm enthusiastic.
When you were in Minnesota, was everybody like Rosen Island?
Was everybody what?
Like Rosen Island from Golden Girls? Was everybody Betty White?
Not everybody, but you certainly saw that. You certainly saw that in Minnesota. I mean, they're nice people. They're nice people. There's nice people everywhere, but they don't have good Mexican food in Minnesota.
But you're happy to be out? Is that what you're telling us? I
am happy to be someplace where liberty is great. That has to do with the government, not with the people of Minnesota. But I'm also happy to be in warmer weather, and I'm happy to be where there's a lot of Tex-Mex options, including Chewy's.
Can't wait to have them as a sponsor. Ed, go back to work. I'm going to take you off camera. We'll join you in a little bit. There he goes. That's Ed Marcy. He's a good man right there. It is one thing to be upset with Elon Musk. It's one thing to be upset with Donald Trump. It's another thing to take bottles of beer, create Molotov cocktails, throw them at Tesla charging stations, and then set yourself on fire. We have seen Teslas be defaced, vandalized, the whole thing. And now we have the story out of South Carolina where a guy set himself ablaze to do what? Prove to us that Elon Musk is bad. You set yourself on fire. We can be honest and clear about the fact that it's beyond saying, well, people are mentally ill. This is different. Do we understand that these people are broken because they have been told that everything is awful? Everything goes to, instead of a conversation about disagreements and policy, it goes to, he's Hitler. If that is your go-to, everything's fine to everything is Hitler and nothing in between, no one should be surprised that people have lost their heads. The problem is it's dangerous for the rest of us. And we need to be doing more about those news outlets and others who push the it's our way or the Hitler way idea. I'm Tony Katz. Guys, good to be with you. Ed will be back later. And we will talk about this Russia deal a little more in depth as he's doing some more research on that. We're in break for the radio show. So we'll take the break here, kick back, relax, smoke them if you got them. And we'll be back to the show in just a few minutes. Producer Landon was saying how relaxing the music is. I said, that's exactly what I was going for. I don't want people riled up while we're on a little bit of a break. It's not the cigar. It's right there. It's allergies. It comes every year, same time. I've had people tell me, well, Tony, it's cancer. I've had people tell me, well, Tony, you clearly have a small dwarf living inside you. I'm telling you, it's just a thing. It comes and it goes. It's usually around this time. It's what it is. Tony Katz, good to be with you. Tony Katz today is the name of the show. Ed Morrissey from Hot Air will be with us in just a few moments. I don't know. He's busy working right now, and I'm not going to show you the behind the scenes there because that would I assume show off his trade secrets. Really, this new development that Vladimir Putin may be okay with a peace deal, but of course the question is, what does that mean? And then you have, Ed, I may go over this with you. The anti-Israel protesters have tried to take over Trump Tower. I don't know if you were able to see that in what you're doing. You haven't seen that one yet, Ed Morrissey? Oh, yeah.
No, I think that I think David is writing something about that. It didn't come up in my piece about Rubio. Because that was more specific to Mahmoud Khalil, but I think David's writing about the other thing, so should be coming up shortly at Hot Air. I think.
Whether we're talking about this guy who's a lawful permanent resident, or we're talking about these people who took over Trump Tower, in the end, none of these people are having a free speech conversation. None of these people are having a conversation about Palestine that doesn't exist. These are all people who want to see Israel wiped off the map. Are we agreeing or disagreeing there?
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think that if you're holding a normal demonstration outside of Trump Tower, or with permission on the campus of Columbia University and saying free Palestine, that's free speech. But when you're seizing buildings, when you are trespassing, that is not speech. That is conduct. And that was the point that Jonathan Turley was making earlier this morning as well, is that this is not a First Amendment. First off, it's not a First Amendment issue because the First Amendment has some limitations for legal permanent residents, green card holders, and courts have consistently ruled in that direction.
Yes,
that the Secretary of State can determine that people are a threat to the national security of the United States when they are engaging with terrorist groups, and they can be booted out of the country, even if they have a green card.
Ed, we're coming to the radio show real quick. Stay right there. Right there, Ed. There's a lot moving. You have got the anti-Israel, pro-Hamas forces taking over Trump Tower in New York. They want the release of Mahmoud Khalil. They're not getting that. Now, these may be American citizens. They just go to jail. Mahmoud Khalil is going back home. This is not a free speech conversation, as William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, explained. And then you have the possibility of a deal where you now see Vladimir Putin saying, well, we'll take a look at a 30-day ceasefire, but we've got a lot of questions. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Ed Morrissey joins me from hotair.com. He was kind enough to stick around through the break as he joined us a little early on the live stream to talk about this. Let's start with what we're seeing from Vladimir Putin. This is the late breaking news. This is one of the stories there from Red State, a partner of yours over at Hot Air. Vladimir Putin agrees in principle to Russian ceasefire with Ukraine. Of course, you have been writing about this as well. Talk to me about what the opportunity is here and where we think the politics leads this.
Well, first off, I think it might be overstating it just a little bit to say that he agreed to a ceasefire in principle. I think he's agreed to talk about a ceasefire.
Solid.
based on what the principles might be. And I think he's being very cagey about this. He wants the Ukrainians to withdraw from Kursk before he enters into that conversation. But this is the first time that he's actually even indicated that he's willing to have a conversation about how this war ends, which is an improvement. It may not necessarily be the path to the end, but it is at least moving the ball down that direction finally after 3 years of war and no negotiations whatsoever. And of course, this is predicated on the fact that Trump got Zelensky to finally agree to have talks as well, because Zelensky didn't want to do that. He says you can't trust Putin. I guess we're going to find that out. I don't necessarily think that you can trust Putin either. I don't know what his game is here. I doubt very seriously that he's going to just stop on a dime. And I think part of what he wants here is a return to the status quo ante of not just 2021 in regards to positioning of troops in Eastern Europe, but maybe all the way back to 1999. And he's certainly not going to get that. NATO is not going to agree to withdraw from Poland or Romania. That was part of the thing that Putin was saying that he wanted in 2022. Putin has to come up with some concessions from NATO that will make this 3-year disaster look like it was worthwhile.
And we're clear that this has been an equal disaster for Vladimir Putin, an invasion that was supposed to take 3 days. Everybody and their mother said this would take 3 days, and the Ukrainians were able to show the world that these Russians don't know how to fight. They do not have a standing army that is of value, but they can throw bodies at a problem until quite literally there are no more bodies, and they've got more bodies than you have. So, as you write in your piece, in quoting the New York Times, it's not a yes, but it's certainly not a no. So as you have been researching this, Ed Morrissey, what do you think gets Vladimir Putin to yes? Land? A NATO agreement? Which one do you think moves most?
Well, I think land is almost a foregone conclusion at this point. He went into Ukraine after spending several years since 2014 talking about how the ethnic Russians were being politically oppressed in Ukraine. The Donbass is an ethnic Russian enclave. They would probably choose to be part of Russia, and their politics has always been Moscow centered ever since the Ukraine broke out of the USSR in 1991. And that's been an ongoing political struggle in Ukraine for the last 30-something years. So I don't necessarily think that losing that, other than obviously the resources and some of the natural defenses there, which are certainly part of that equation, is politically going to be all that harmful to the ethnic Ukrainians who really would like Ukraine for Ukrainians. That aside, it's going to be tough for Zelensky to bargain away land that they lost in successive invasions in 2014 and again in 2022. Politically speaking, it's probably not going to go over very well. On the other hand, maybe it won't be as bad as it would seem at first, because again, maybe the ethnic Ukrainians are at a stage where they would just rather be rid of the ethnic Russians and live with that outcome rather than keep getting bombed. And I think that so the lands, the territorial concessions, I think, are a baseline here. I think the real question is, what kind of security guarantees will Vladimir Putin accept that will protect what's left of Ukraine from more Russian aggression? And, how does NATO figure into that? Because don't forget, Finland and Sweden joined NATO as a result of the invasion. And now you've got an 850-mile frontier, Russia does, 850-mile frontier with NATO, which goes right up, almost right next to the Murmansk naval base, which is one of their big strategic naval bases. And they're not happy about that. And will Putin insist that Finland and Sweden go back to neutrality? I don't think that they're going to do that.
I would argue and agree that he can't move Finland and Sweden to do that. They simply will look at him and go, "Niet." They're not going to be a part of that argument. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. But the NATO concession always started with Ukraine not being a NATO nation. I certainly support Ukraine not being a NATO nation. Can Ukraine see its way clear to a deal by not being a NATO nation?
Well, I mean, they're not going to be a NATO nation. They're just not going to be a NATO nation. Even Joe Biden was kind of wishy-washy on that. And Donald Trump has been insistent that he doesn't want to provoke the Russians by doing that. And that he thought that the NATO talk previously was part of what led up to what happened in 2014. And again, what happened in 2022. Donald Trump, at least as long as Donald Trump is president, Ukraine is not going to join NATO because the U.S. will just keep vetoing it. The question here is, what other security guarantees can you do that aren't provocative? And that was what the mineral rights deal was about, was to show that the U.S. was investing in Ukraine, in a sovereign Ukraine, in a very real way, and to make sure that Putin got that signal, but in a non-provocative way, not one that was going to rub his nose in it. And I think that may be as much as Ukraine's going to get. France has talked about sending some troops on their own, but not as part of NATO. And I think Putin, I think a few days ago, if I recall, had said something about wanting to discuss what the composition of peacekeeping forces would look like in Ukraine. So I think he's already conceded that there's going to have to be some peacekeeping forces on the frontier, which is good. And I think makes some sense. But if it's a NATO deployment, I think he absolutely says no to that. I think it's going to have to be individual countries acting on their own that don't necessarily involve an Article 5 declaration if hostilities erupt on that frontier again.
Article 5 being an attack on one is an attack on all. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com, we saw from Mark Thiessen that the Treasury Department under Trump just changed some sanctions rules that would have prevented Europeans from being able to give money to the Russians for energy. It would no longer allow for that transfer, thus cutting off Russia's ability to get paid. Was this the move? Was this the leverage, the Reagan on Gorbachev oil price leverage maneuver that brought Putin to this moment?
Well,
or really ask it this way. Does Putin need this ceasefire as much as Ukraine?
I think Putin needs a ceasefire. I'm not sure if it's as much as Ukraine, but Putin really needs a ceasefire. And I think Politico Europe had a piece, and this is about 2 weeks ago, about the fact that they've extended their debt as far as it can go. They can't get more credit. And Donald Trump said something, I think yesterday, that he could make things very difficult on Russia financially if they didn't start talking peace. And I've been watching this thing about the energy payments kind of unfolding. And Jackie Heinrich over at Fox News was saying that she'd asked about the fact that that the waivers had apparently expired and nobody's done anything about it. And the White House was going, "Oh yeah, we may have overlooked that. Let us look into that." But she hasn't heard back in 2 days. So my guess is that this was a low-level, a signal that didn't go out publicly, but would be understood privately, which is, I think, how Donald Trump wants to deal with Putin. I think he understands, or at least this is his approach. I'll just say this. I think his approach with Putin is don't rub his face in it, and you can get him to come along. Now, whether or not that's the case, we'll see. But that's one of the reasons why he's been trying to talk in a more balanced manner than Biden did about Putin. Why he's scolded Zelensky for, not being open to the idea of peace, not because he's aligning himself with Putin, but because he wants to bring Putin to the table. And I think that some of these things are happening sotto voce so that Putin doesn't feel like he's being humiliated as part of this process. Now, that may not seem like justice to a lot of people, but if it gets you an enduring peace, I think we can live with a few days of Putin not getting, humiliated.
Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com, I will say that I would object to the idea that Russia has run out of credit. If the plan all along, if the ultimate reality is Russia as a failed nation economically, being a vassal state of China, China can put as much money in as they want to be able to create disruptions in other places. And I don't want to leave that equation off the table, but allow me to change gears on you just for a moment as we take a look at what is happening. It was the New York Post with the headline that it's a tower takeover. You had let me see if I can grab this here. You had they're not pro Israel. They're anti-Israel. They're really pro Hamas. And what you had are these people who are desperate to see Mahmoud Khalil out of jail, and because this guy is connected to terrorist organizations, supportive, I should say, of terrorist organizations. He's a permanent lawful resident, but as Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, explained, that doesn't mean that you have the same rights as an American citizen. Now you have these people so believing that this is a First Amendment issue, a free speech issue, that they have taken over Trump Tower. Tower takeover is how the New York Post put it. There's a difference between speech and act, correct?
Yes. Jonathan Turley was making the same point on Fox and Friends this morning, is that the issue for Khalil isn't speech, it's conduct. This is conduct. It's not speech. And we used to understand the difference between the two, right, Tony? I mean, it used to be speech is speech, but if you start occupying spaces, that's conduct. And that is arrestable and prosecutable. So bad behavior is not free speech. Free speech is free speech. If all Khalil did was have a legal demonstration where he was espousing the side of the Palestinians, nobody would be talking about this because it wouldn't be news and nobody would have been intimidated. Khalil was taking part of occupations of buildings at Columbia, disseminating Hamas propaganda, some of which was from the Hamas media group, labeled as such, and organizing intimidation campaigns at Columbia University. That's conduct. That's not speech. And the Secretary of State has practically plenary power to revoke green card or student or visa statuses and expel people from the United States on the basis of national security. And Hamas is a listed terrorist organization. The State Department has been since 1997. So if you're espousing Hamas and you are disseminating Hamas propaganda as part of an intimidation campaign against Jews, both students and faculty, that's deportable conduct. The Secretary of State can determine that you are detrimental to national security because of that and boot you out of the country. And you don't have to have a trial for that. That's part of the authority that the Secretary of State has.
Yeah,
However,
got everybody and their mother, including Bernie Sanders and a host of others, saying there's a little thing called free speech, a little thing called the First Amendment. How come you don't know it, Donald Trump? In every single situation, the left is taking the wrong side. I think the argument is in an 80-20 argument, right? 80% of the people believe something. The political left has been on the 20% side of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great example of that, right? People don't like radicals occupying campus buildings. They just don't. Even if they're maybe sympathetic to some of the messaging, they don't like that there are intimidation campaigns going on college campuses. It's one of the reasons why Democrats lost the election last time around, is because they were pandering to the 20% of people who think that that's a great idea. And we went through this in the 60s and the 70s, right? And eventually people settled back on the idea that there's a difference between speech and conduct. This is not speech. This is conduct. He's not being expelled because he is sympathetic to the Palestinians. He's being expelled because he's coordinating Hamas propaganda materials and coordinating illegal activities on college campuses, and he's not a citizen. By the way, citizens could have been prosecuted for some of this. He could be prosecuted. It's just easier to kick him out of the country. The Holy Land Foundation case is a great example of that, which also involved Hamas propaganda as well as financing.
You can get more on that at hotair.com. Stay right there. Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. I appreciate you being here. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Ed, you're a good man. I was trying to get that thing up. I realized I grabbed the Red State article instead of your Hot Air article, but I fixed it.
We're all part of the same group. So, I mean, if it's a Red State or something, fine. Yeah.
No, I used to do work for Red State, and then they said, we don't need you anymore. And I said, well, I don't need your mom anymore. I don't that is not how that conversation went at all.
Yo mama.
That also did not get said. But when you say it, it sounds even more sad.
Yes.
First, I appreciate you being here. I enjoy you tremendously.
I have a blast coming on here, Tony. Whenever I can do it, I love doing it.
I was discussing earlier, and I wanted to get your take, because I'm not the first person who said it, but I think I'm digging in more than some others on this. And that is that the Democrats, they don't have a wartime consigliere. In the end, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not built for this. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to act and react. They don't know how to respond. They don't know how to fight. And I believe that in true mafia parlance, this is a vacuum of leadership that leads to a fight amongst the five families, that leads to a lot of blood in the streets to find a new capo de tutti capo. Is that what's coming?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that they're so far off the beam. You know, Tara Palmieri, by the way, has a pretty fun video where she's interviewing a House Democrat, and she talks about authenticity, and he's going, yeah, we have to learn how to talk to people. Well, first you have to listen to people. They're not listening to anybody. They're listening to the same academia bubble that's put them in the position that they're in right now. They can't even fake authenticity at the moment. Their idea of authenticity is to have 50 people tweet out the exact same thing at the exact same time. And that's been going on for days now. That's not authentic. And so, yeah, they're going to have to get somebody from a red state, like a red state governor. Andy Beshear may be a guy who they might want to look at, or Josh Shapiro for that matter.
Well, wait, Josh Shapiro is smartly keeping his powder dry. We can all agree it's not Chris Murphy. He's a mess.
No, Chris Murphy's a mess. All the people who are in positions of leadership right now are a disaster. Politico had Rahm Emanuel thinking about running for president, which I had a lot of fun with. But he might be the kind of guy that actually would shake them up and get them, slap them across the face, or, stab a meeting table and go, dead, 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 like he did in 1993.
Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. Listen, man, let's get to a Chewy's and let's get them, let's get that sweet sponsorship dollar.
Chewy's,
right?
Chewy's. Tony Katz has got to be the new spokesman for Chewy's. That's what I say.
Chewy's. Good.
Good.
And not it? I thought that was excellent.
I thought that was pretty good.
Right?
Yeah.
Chewy's, because conservatism is caliente. No?
There you go. Yeah, baby. We're on the right track.
Didn't even need a writer. Didn't even need AI. Just handled it right there. Right. Ed, go live your life, man. I took a lot of your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Ed Morrissey.
Great being with you.
Hotair.com. There he goes. Godspeed. He's going to go do anything else now. Anything. Oh, good Lord. Love that guy. And just Johnny on the spot. Just terrific. A lot to get to. I had a conversation with Congressman Marlin Stutzman earlier today. I'm going to share that with you. My conversation with Griff Jenkins on the border is coming up. And also, I said, man, Chris Cuomo, the Chris Cuomo, James Carville twofer. That's coming up on the radio side as well. You do not want to miss any part of that. Back to the radio show. Here we go. So the story broke yesterday about a guy by the name of Shelton Snow. I don't know Shelton Snow. National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees. I had not heard of it. But this guy was giving test answers to black applicants and female applicants, but not white applicants. Tony Katz today. I may get into this more than once. The evil of DEI, there you go. It's evil. Why would you give people the answers to a test? Don't they need to know the answers so they can actually do the job as an air traffic controller? All this screaming and yelling. How dare you say DEI is responsible for that crash between the Black Hawk helicopter and the American Airlines regional jet? 60 some odd people were killed. Well, there were serious technical issues. But we know that under Pete Buttigieg, they engage these DEI philosophies. DEI is dangerous. It destroys. It divides. It ruins. And if someone believes, well, I have to make sure I help a candidate who looks like this or thinks like that, and not we have too many of those kinds of people, you have to be able to win it via merit. And yes, you can't stop people based on a color of skin, and you shouldn't. And we should make sure that doesn't happen, and we do. People forget that we do. But you're going to feed the answers because of color of skin? You think you're helping people when you do that? You think you're helping them if they don't know and they just copy the answer and they don't actually understand? You're putting everybody's life at risk. Why? So somebody who is pick the descriptor can have a job, and you can say diversity. Diversity for the sake of diversity is nonsense. It's violently dangerous to say we need all of these different types of people and we don't care about the skill. But these DEI zealots, I mean, it's pure evil. Let this investigation go forward here. Pure evil. You'll never convince me otherwise on DEI. My conversation with Congressman Stutzman, and would people stop doing the Gavin Newsom podcast already? This is Tony Katz today. Thank you, producer Landon. Guys, I don't know how to say this to you. I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. It's not that I don't love you. There's love. I gotta go. I will be back tomorrow, live streaming tomorrow. Really appreciate it. You guys know I live stream my morning show too, from my home station, 93.1 FM WIBC. So if you're on YouTube, WIBC, you'll be able to get that as well from 6 to 9 a.m. And we'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate you guys tremendously. I love that the numbers are growing. I love that we're building something very, very, very cool here. And do not forget, tickets.tonykatz.com. Trump and American Reset in 3 bourbons. April 17th is when we're doing this. We're going to take a look at the first 100 days compared to other 100 days in history. We're going to drink bourbon. The food is going to be outstanding. We're going to laugh our faces off. It's going to be spectacular. Trump and American Reset in 3 bourbons. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Come on out to Kokomo, Indiana, April 17th. Tickets.tonykatz.com. Be a part of what we're doing over there. It's going to be terrific. Cannot wait. I appreciate you guys being here. I'll be back tomorrow, everybody. Take care.